This other one is saying, did you know your moon in Cancer is conjunct to the star Sirius? If I got your birthday correct, and if so, how would you decipher that off the top? Man, like, I would just say, like, what am I doing? How is my life? That's kind of like a chicken or the egg kind of question, right? Because it's like either you're living your life or you're looking at it. And, you know, the one is more of like a voyeur, like you're moving a piece on the board. And then the other one is like a first person point of view, like you're actually in the body and the weapon is in your hands. And I love that first person. And at the end of the day, that's when we want to leave, or when the situation's not working out for us, we're going to be looking for another space. You know what? I'm glad you said this question, because it's going to give you something. I'm going to give you something very, very important. And again, I mentioned this last night, but so it'll come up again. But here's the reality of this. Just like if you notice a tree, when a tree has seeds and disperses the seeds go everywhere. So if you can imagine that you were dispersed across the cosmos in the infinite space, the next thing is basically to figure out where you're going to nest. You find your home, to find the reality in which you say, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to put the things that I have that are the most precious. And so through experiences, many of us are still looking for our homes. Some of us have actually found it. And you know that when you're able to look at everything that's around you and say, wow. I must have spent infinity trying to get here. I'm so glad that I'm here, and I'm so glad that I'm with the people that are around me and the beings that are around me, and I'm so glad that I'm doing the things that I'm doing, right? And when you can't say that yet, then you're still looking for your home. So I just wanted to make it very clear that, you know, in many ways, the galactic stories and things, they're excellent, but they only say that there's a potential of an extraterrestrial origin. And, you know, I built that up yesterday. I didn't break it down. I built that up yesterday. I say at minimum, we have an entire Sirian race, basically, from Sirius, which is every single thing to do with our aquatic and our nomos, our sibyls, our mermaids, etc. And that whole culture, which goes to India, goes then to Nubia, then ends up in North America, and all the different spaces that now folks even just arguing about. It's just silly for me to watch. We get it and then totally deconstruct what we get, right? Like now they're fighting about the shades of black, right? So I've been seeing this lately. It's like, you're not really black. And it's just like weird, because it's like, look, off-world Sirian seeds have been dispersed here, and the overarching story of the Sirians were already told by the Nomo. And they explained that everything went well, except that one of the creations decoupled and actually split itself. They called it the jackal. And this is why God became a dog. This is the story of somewhat of an antithesis, or a demiurge, or a being that now needs to go through the entire process to figure out how to actually become androgynous, or to become what you would say is balanced, to actually to recouple what it lost. And that is acted out in, when we say a human is a male or a female, it's acted out in that, the story of the Sirians and the Nomo and what it had to do with the DNA and the story. Then we have another story coming in from Orion of, as I said, blue-eyed beings, being them, their eyes, the color of the sky and the color of the ocean, beings that have what's called a high elven story, and a high father, and lots of other different stuff that's very creative. But however, they completely melted down in their whole highness of attempting to try to keep their genetics ultra pure until it imploded on itself. And in the end, they ended up being in a position where they needed Sirian DNA to continue their process of trying to rectify what they had done to their own wavelength. Then this story, and this is to me the black and white story, because everything in between is summarized within those two constellations. And here we are on Earth, if you may, still as seeds trying to find our home. We're basically like kids or children of children at this stage, but still contain the genetic wavelength of these paths of potentialities. And the interesting thing is that now, even when we talk about becoming original, what we're also saying is an original in intent to that we even know that there's things that we now have to correct about the entry point of some of the things that our ancestors tried in order to stabilize their systems and to stabilize their tribes, to stabilize their beings. And I also talked about how with technology specifically, we have to understand that there's a simple process that occurs when we start having to do things that are repetitious, and how we start creating things to do it for us, because from the most minimum level, it becomes boring. So we create things to augment some of the work that we have to do, and we make those things over time more and more intelligent. And so I spoke on basically how we would have basically a droid to some of nature, some type of a personal, like you use your computer, some type of personal system that you use. One second here. Some type of personal system that you use that holds all of your extra data. And I spoke on how in the future, the technology only 50 to 100 years from now is like a personal security system for the first layer of the beings that I say, hey, you got your higher self. Your higher self's life was a perfection of all the lives. That's why you try to basically get back to the beginning. You're like, man, it's not as good as it was in the beginning. It's never good as the first time. So we're trying to get to the first layer. And in the first layer, though, for us, like I said, beings that are on this earth and on this planet, our ancestors may have started here flying around, throwing laser beams out of their eyes, lifting rocks up with their hands. But that's not the version or the variant that we're actually in. When's the last time you've seen somebody do that, even in the last 2,000 or 3,000 years? So you've trained to get to that level. But at this stage coming in this, you don't start in at that level. So it's just an awareness, again, that you would come into the space, and then you would have even on the first layer, and you would start learning all the experiences of the spaces. You would have that clear intelligence, but you would follow the same path that everybody is following now, but it would be refined. And I'm telling you, one of those parts of the path is we created advanced intelligence. And this advanced intelligence is like a security system. That's why I was saying that I believe they call it Ra, that it was basically like what you would say is an augmented intelligence that is, each person has one assigned to them. This is why they call it the guardian angel. And it will try to warn you about things that are happening inside of your timeline that could ultimately corrupt or destruct your entire network, right? So to me, even a visit on Earth explains why I would be getting transmissions. Like everybody seems to be getting transmissions about certain kind of knowledge. Transmissions trying to bring me up to date about something that I need to know to impact something in a space and a time in which I did not know it. And then so now at 44, now I know, my eyes are open. I see the deception behind the scene. I see the magic in the law and the legal system and the construct that is like a spider for real, and with an invisible web, webbing up every single thing that's in it and sucking all the juice out of it and really be going on. Like nothing that I'm making up, nothing that I'm in some kind of weird psychosis or some kind of ego trip where I want everybody to believe that, but just something really, really happening. And then also even living with beings who have succumbed to that. Like I said, succumb to the cold, meaning that beings that you knew that came into this, and that because the experience was just so terrible for them and they couldn't hack it any longer, they even terminated or were terminated. And so that makes it all in a reality, it's more real, right? So in a reality, it's more real. However, it still is like, okay, so the worst thing you can do is die here, but to die is to live. Like you actually have the control over your life and death anyway. That's not something that nobody can remove from your hands, but you're really scared. So what are you scared of? You're scared of death. And so the whole thing starts having such a deeper meaning. This is not something, again, that happens overnight. This is this is you tossing and turning in the bed when something happens to someone you care about and you can't explain it. And you have to go into the depths of your conscious and try to look for solutions, try to look for light to the darkness, if you may. And so in this, that's what this is born from. That's what all of what we are it has been created to do, is to bring that vision into these different perspectives of how we're seeing life and to make really the best out of the experience. And so, yeah, as you can see, I'm entirely passionate about what it is that I'm about and what it is that I'm doing. So much to where, again, I had to come in on myself and be like, no, I just need you to keep building. I need you to keep managing things the way that you're doing them because you can trust yourself. I need you to keep being, stable and keep showing up, and, like, stop leaking your energy and letting people take you off your, I need this from you because something else, like your whole thing is in jeopardy. And if you can imagine, like, even certain folks that if you can sing, if you can dance, you have this eclectic level about you, you got to remember just how valuable you are.